We are the Contentment Foundation. In our Race for Wellbeing interview series, we will be interviewing Formula One drivers about the importance of mental health for high performance. Our first guest is Nico Rosberg, 2016 Formula One world champion, successful sustainability entrepreneur, and co-founder of the Green Tech Festival. Well, Nico, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really grateful that you agreed to sit down with us to talk about the importance of mental health. It's something that Formula One drivers usually aren't very open about. So we're grateful because for us as a Contentment Foundation, to have someone like you who has a big platform and who's a top athlete, kind of be like an ambassador for mental wellness, is really, really important. So Emmett and I can't wait to dive into this with you. But before we start, I wanted to get the most important question out of the way first. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Just that I've come late to this talk we're having because I had a bit of a meltdown at home from our youngest daughter this morning. But apart from that, I'm doing great. And she's actually now sitting in the car in her pajama just a couple of meters away.
That's dad life for you. Well, we really appreciate you being here. So let's dive in. In Formula One, performance is determined by many different things. Obviously, the car plays a big role. But when two drivers both have the best car, then driver characteristics come into play. And I was wondering if you could reflect on the impact of mental health. How does mental health factor into that equation when it comes to peak performance on track?
It's a huge part of performing as a human being, as we all know, I'm sure already by now. I mean, it's a big part of it. So mental health, it certainly plays a big role as well in performing. And so when I started out in F1, of course, I spent hours and hours training my body every day. I think 4 or 5 hours in different forms of cycling and this and that and reaction training, 4 hours maybe. And my first season, it was mentally quite tough, really, because the car was poor. We were driving around in 17th place at times. The leadership of the team was Williams. They were notorious for being really hard on their young drivers. Like once I had a little crash and the boss comes to me and say, "Nico, you were totally useless to us this weekend." Boom, that's it. And I'm 20-year-old guy, and just this is my dream, and you're totally useless to us this weekend. Like that, even still now, gives me the shivers. So there was a lack of empathy there. I think we're going to be touching on that later. I think a definite lack of a little bit of empathy there.
Yeah.
Not realizing that I too have some feelings, even though I'm quite look like a fierce racing driver. I do have feelings as well. Yeah. So the first year was very tough for me mentally, and so I really came to my own conclusion that I'm training my body so much. There's got to be a way of strengthening and making my own mental well-being more resilient and being even enhancing my performance as a result. And so I went around looking for someone who can help me with that, a mental coach or psychologist. And I was very lucky. I found someone here in the south of France who's very experienced in sports, who's known to be one of the best in France, actually. And I started this really long journey with him, and it was a phenomenal, eye-opening experience for my life, and a big reason why I'm F1 world champion, and also why we're then sitting here together. But I'm happy to touch on that a little bit more afterwards. Nevertheless, I was the first kind of in the sport to open up that path. In our sport, if you have a mental health or it's a brain doctor, which who needs that? We're all machos, we don't need brain doctors. That's the way our sport has been dealing with that, and so I was one of the first, if not the first, to go down that avenue. But I didn't feel comfortable in sharing it at all in my time racing.
Yeah, that's something that I wanted to touch upon as well, because I've been studying these things for many years, and I find it really interesting that we've created a world where, particularly for men, it's really difficult to talk about what's going on inside their brains, when we all know that it can bring us so much, like not just in terms of self-awareness, but as you know, more than anybody, also in terms of performance. And
happiness.
And happiness as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but even if you don't care about that, like if you want to bring out the best in yourself, this helps you. But even though I love Formula One, I love the sport, I have for many, many years, and I still do, but I think it's a shame that this is such a difficult topic to address for Formula One drivers. So I was wondering if you could reflect on how could we encourage more conversations around mental health with F1 drivers or even just in the paddock in general?
Yeah. But it's not that easy, because if I would have told my teammate Michael Schumacher, hey, I'm actually scared of going into the race today because I'm scared of messing up. He lives and breathes destroying the mental of his teammate. I mean, but he doesn't need to put effort, yeah? It just comes, he wakes up in the morning, the first thing that comes to his mind is, oh, how can I destroy the mental of my teammate today? It's a natural, zero energy, yeah? It comes naturally. So. And I mean, it's not that obvious. He would have pounced. Like, if I would have told him I'm scared today of going out there because I'm scared of messing up, he would have pounced on that. He would be like making fun of me and like, hey Nico, oh don't worry Nico, you don't need to be scared today, or how are you feeling Nico today? And so it's not that obvious, but yes, of course, in general, that path is showing your vulnerability is in the first moment a big tough thing to do, and can cause short-term challenges and difficulties, but in the medium long term it's so powerful. It's the most powerful thing, one of the most powerful things we can do.
Absolutely.
To become stronger, more self-confident, more happy, more performing, essentially. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say that, but that it keeps me wondering, because I think now it has changed a little bit, at least towards the outside world. Now, you know, it's said that, okay, mental health matters, we find it important, we understand that that is something that you need, but still then when drivers are asked, well, do you have a psychologist? Like, no, not me. Like, it's fine if someone else has it, but not me. Do you think there's any way to change that?
It takes time. It will take time. There's more and more people speaking about it. It just needs to become more of a normality, more accepted, more understood. It's just a process. We've seen now more and more F1 drivers as well. I mean, there's Romain Grosjean, who was very open about having a psychologist helping him. We've seen Lando Norris now being very open about even his mental challenges in general, which when I see it surprises me at first that he's courageous enough like that to say that. Very cool, very helpful to all of us. Even Lewis Hamilton, if you read between the lines, he's very, very often trying to express, not as clearly, but trying to express his mental challenges, and that for him mentally it seems very, very tough at times as well. Sometimes lonely, sometimes all these things, which me knowing him well, I can obviously read between the lines even better. So he's been expressing that even more, which has also been valuable to see, that even the greatest superstar of our sport, where from the outside people can think, okay, he's got it all and it's just pure happiness every single day, but it's not like that, because of course money and success aren't the things beyond a certain level, aren't the things that are going to enhance our happiness and balance in life. Those things we find in elsewhere, not with money and success.
Absolutely. All right, so we have to give it a little bit more time, I guess.
So we have to give it a little bit more time, yeah. But it's on the right track. It's
Yeah.
on the right track. I'm loving also, I mean, we've seen in tennis, Osaka opening up, and that's really, really powerful. If you watch the Serena Williams documentary, she's open. Again, it's more between the lines there, but you can see how tough it is for her. The whole world expecting from Serena Williams to beat that next record and it's all about that then from people around. She shows it as well in her documentary. It's just very, very tough to deal with mentally. So I think there's a lot of progress.
Yeah. Well, thankfully.
Simone Biles, another one in gymnastics during the Olympics.
Pulled out
For mental health.
Yeah.
That's I mean, extremely powerful. Extremely powerful.
Yeah.
And so courageous, and wow, to be courageous enough in that moment to say, okay, my mental health is not in the right place. I'm risking myself physically here. Wow. And the Olympics is only once every 4 years.
Yeah.
And
have you ever been in that place where you had to get into the car and you were like,
oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course, yeah. But I didn't have the courage to get out and say, guys, put someone else in today. My mental health is not in the right place.
Yeah.
I didn't have that courage, and yeah.
Well, I think that's really interesting because, of course, Simone Biles doing it is really good and really impactful, but you strap yourself into a rocket ship and then you drive it around the track at the absolute limit.
Yeah.
So I could imagine that could have been, like, how did you feel when you were in the race? Do you then take less risks, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say now that it caused me to have more risks.
Okay.
It's yeah, because I can still drive very well even if my mental state is not 100% there. Of course, I won't be driving at my very best, and that makes a difference then in performance, but not in enhancing my risk, I would say now, if I had to think about it, yes.
All right.
So as an amateur race car driver, I've experienced a little bit of the psychology of racing. When I first got into it, I dealt with some really extreme emotions, just fear. I mean, full, flat out fear when you get into a race car for the first time. Also anxiety, was something that came forward in a big way for me. So first I had to learn how to deal with those emotions and learn how to be calm in the race car. And then I learned about the mind, and I learned that having a clear mind when I was driving was super important. Something that it's not well known about mental health, and I've learned this since I've been with the Contentment Foundation, is that it's 25% about the mind, it's 75% about the inner self. Really finding inner peace is where the fountain of mental well-being resides. So I'm curious, as you got deeper and deeper into psychology and started to explore your inner self, and what was that journey that you went through to start to discover some of those things?
Essentially to be a better sportsman at first. That was the start of it for me, but it turned out actually to growing as a human being and finding more happiness and balance, which was unexpected. I was more just, how can I find more brain performance to race better? And so, yes, it was just a big discovery, and of course a lot of meditation, a lot of acceptance of, because you cannot switch off emotions, but the path is through acceptance and being present to them, and then they will slowly lose power naturally in that way. So that was one big process, and yeah, it's all these little things that then added up to both me becoming more balanced as a human being, more happy, but also to winning the world championship.
That's great.
And also learning about understanding life, understanding myself. That helped me to find a better work-life balance, understanding the importance of those family moments, friend moments, and getting all that balance. That also has a huge role essentially then in your performance, especially in those key moments under pressure. If you arrive there in a balanced manner, and you're refreshed and you're joyful and happy, then you can perform that 2% better in the highest pressure situations where you're bound to make the odd mistake, and you will avoid the one or other mistake. And that can then have in sports where it's so close.
Absolutely.
That will make the difference between winning a world championship and not, which it did in my case, because in my world championship was on the line at the last race until the very last corner. And there was two guys behind me within 1 second of me. And so a mistake that would have cost me 1 second would have been losing the world championship.
Yeah.
With a teammate in front who is fiercely trying to make me do the mistake, because he was slowing me down and blocking me into the two people that were right behind me, trying to push me into making that little mistake. And the two behind me were Sebastian Vettel, one of the greatest of all time, and Max Verstappen, who's becoming one of the greatest of all time, who were fiercely willing to get my position on that podium.
Sure.
And I didn't make a mistake, because I arrived there so well balanced, so well prepared, and that was awesome. Yeah.
That's amazing. So within the Contentment Foundation, one of our curriculum pillars is called self-curiosity, and it's about becoming aware of all the experiences you've had in your life, positive and negative, and realizing that those are part of your identity. That's kind of the first step of self-curiosity. And then the second step is finding the ones that you don't want to have part of your identity and sort of releasing yourself from those and getting rid of those. As you went further into this journey, did you find anything about yourself that you realized you wanted to change as part of this journey? And my question is, how, if you discover that within yourself, how do you then, affect that transformation that you want to make happen?
Yeah, awesome. I really like that process. I even did a psychoanalysis with my psychologist, because even that even though he never says anything, it's me talking about my life, and patterns start to evolve where it just gives you that extra bit of understanding. And in my psychoanalysis, for example, the importance of my father came about. How important it is for me also to impress him and things like that, and that's also in my understanding been very, very helpful to understand that part. And then it was really a lot about just understanding myself as well. And for a basic example is, why do you feel jealous when my wife looks at some other guy that that looks good. why do I feel
Right.
straight away such painful jealousy?
Right.
And why in the past would I then confront her and say, can you stop doing that? I mean, can you stop looking at like that? And today, it's a very different approach, because if you get into that spiral of confronting this and that, she's not doing anything wrong. I mean, we all do that. We appreciate other good-looking human beings. That's totally fine. And so now I understand that it's actually just me, because I expect her to be God for her, and that she's only that I am the greatest for her, and I get all the recognition. And in that moment, my recognition kind of cuts for like 3 seconds, and that's why I'm like. But I understand that it's just me really, and it's my ego, and so then now I just accept and because of course she's not doing anything wrong, It's just so that's an example.
That's
and
great.
then if you accept and you understand, it has a spiral effect on your life really. So yeah.
So just going back to the comment you made about your father, when you realized that was part of who you were, was there sort of a level of peace that came with that, and you were able to sort of, that was one example of something that gave you just more peace in general once you became aware of that?
Yeah, but the big step was showing vulnerability also to my dad. So we then sat down. I asked if we could sit down and really have a good conversation, open conversation about also my feelings, his feelings. And then the funniest thing came about because I told him also that I'm so different to him. He's the macho kind of guy, macho, and I'm much more sensitive and insecure and things like that. So I'm very, very different. And I'm like telling him, I would love to be more like you. And then he's telling me, well, Nico, I would love to be more like you. And I'm like, what? And then he suggests, that surely probably the middle way would be the best way. And I'm like, wow, he wants to be more like me. And
that's actually really great. I mean,
and that for me was really an eye-opening moment, which and this process then has made me also, now I'm just totally relaxed actually when I'm with him, and it's just now my mom and him are on one level for me also, and it's just really changed the dynamic. It's just the process we've gone through it.
What's fascinating
really
about
nice.
that is, back to the self-curiosity curriculum, is when you became aware of that and then had that conversation, it ultimately changed who you are and changed your relationship, changed your
totally,
life.
yeah.
So it's really that process of becoming aware of it that led you there.
Yeah, but it was very difficult, of course, at first to have that conversation, as it always is, because it's about vulnerability again, and it was at first, of course, tough, but only for a couple of minutes in the moment, and then afterwards, straight away, you feel the benefits, and it was so interesting. I want to be more like you, and he's like, oh yeah, but I want to be so much more like you, because my father goes on instinct. Which part of the brain is that?
Amygdala.
The what?
The amygdala.
So he has a huge amygdala and has no problem in reacting on the amygdala. So if someone annoys it, the person will find out instantly.
Yeah.
The amygdala will go out of control. Whereas my amygdala, I have it totally under control. You will never see me getting angry or something. Mm-hmm. I will always be thinking about it. Even if I shout at my kids, I actually tell my kids that I'm going to shout at you now. Because I'm sorry, cover your ears, but I'm going to shout at you now. Nothing comes from the amygdala without me really having control over it.
Latching on to what you just mentioned, when I did my PhD, I also worked in clinical practice, and there was something that I noticed, and that is the smarter people are, the more rational people are, the more difficult it is for them to really give themselves to this whole process, to this whole journey of self-discovery, because they try to rationalize their way out of it at first. They will fight it at first. I know that you are quite smart, and that's an understatement. Like, everything I've read about you, everything people say is that you're an incredibly smart person. So I was just wondering if your intelligence, and you also mentioned in the beginning that you're a very rational person, was that a barrier that you had to overcome in the beginning to really give yourself to this whole process of self-discovery?
No, because I was always someone who I question myself a lot, mm-hmm. and I'm more on the insecure, and at first I would always think, okay, it's my fault, or mm-hmm. okay, I'm not good enough, or whatever, and so I never had an issue with questioning myself and finding processes to progress. Yeah, so no, not really.
Alright.
Probably, I think that's more on the side of the people who are more have the little bit of the narcissism or whatever, who are so in love with themselves that they will then struggle to accept that it can be helpful for them to open up this journey or something.
Well, sometimes it's also not about saying I don't need it, but more when it comes to accepting situations as they are. What I mean is I notice that really intelligent people will still try to find a solution for it first.
Yeah.
When sometimes the solution is to just sit and say, okay, this is what it is right now. I'm going to accept this situation as it is. So I'm going to accept that I'm very insecure.
Yeah.
I'm going to accept that that is just who I am. Was that an easy process for you, or did that take time? Did you try to find a way out of it at first?
No, for me was pretty easy, yeah,
Alright.
to go through that acceptance. Yeah.
Good.
That was.
So this also touches on like personal growth, right? And
But then there will be my father's example once again,
Yeah.
even though now mentioning him quite a lot, but anyways, for him brain doctor is like, that doesn't work, like we don't need brain doctors.
it's interesting, brain doctor. Interesting way
I
to
exaggerate with the wording,
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
because we don't need brain doctors.
Yeah,
You know?
got it.
We're good.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very, very passionate about the concept of finding purpose as young as you can, finding passion as young as you can. I
Me
think
too.
what's interesting is I think you knew as a very young boy that you wanted to be Formula One world champion. I'm wondering, when did that become a realization? When did you commit your life to that? And it might be that your openness to learning, your openness to all these topics, and the fact that you weren't afraid might be because you knew exactly what you wanted to achieve, and that was the primary goal, and you were happy to do whatever you had to do to get there.
Yeah.
Is that true? Is that how you were thinking?
Yes, but then my question is it my big passion? Why am I not doing it anymore today? I'm not sure. Maybe it was more a challenge that I wanted to embrace, because I saw also that I can achieve great things, and so that's still a question which I'm not sure of, and that's why now in my new life, anyways, I'm still searching for these kind of passions that you're mentioning. Haven't yet really found them, and I'm putting a lot of effort in that for my kids, because I really hope that they can find those kind of passions also very, very early on. So we're trying a lot of different things, and I hope that I can help them find a passion like that for life very, very soon and early on. Yeah, that's a big importance for me, and I always respect a lot when I see some examples of people who have really found their calling. That's always very inspiring, I find.
When you think about the journey and the commitment and the passion that you had, do you think about that in kind of a warm way? I mean, I know there were lots of incredible sacrifices that you had to make along the way, but do you miss that passion and that vision that you had?
No, I don't miss it at all, like 0.0, because it was super intense, and it becomes such a big challenge, yeah, and every single day, from morning to evening. There's no day off, because even actually it was that extreme that even a day on the beach with the family was almost part of becoming world champion, because it was part of finding that balance, you know. So it was really to a very big extreme, and so I don't miss that at all. It was extremely intense, and it was good that it was fine, you know, it was great, but I wouldn't want to do it again. No.
Is that also why you stopped?
Yeah, of course, one of the reasons, yeah. Of
Yeah.
course, one of the reasons for stopping was also because of that intensity, yeah. I think I was in the most intense possible situation as well, because when you have the biggest enemy within your own family, and it's only you against him, I think that's the most intense possible situation in F1. It's much easier if you have a number 2 teammate, you are the number 1, and you have the whole team plus your teammate, who's your family and working for you and trying to help you beat the guy from the other team. I think that's a very, very different dynamic to when it's only you against your teammate and he's the biggest enemy, and it's within the same family, where then the team has to stay neutral and actually at times will choose the one side or the other. That's horrible when they choose the other side. It's really, really horrible. You feel so like alone. And how much effort it takes to all the time try and get the team to support you more than the other, and it's a really, really big mission, which is not really that's not really enjoyable. Like it's quite tough.
I can imagine. But does the fact that you and Lewis used to be friends factor into that as well?
Or not? I'm not sure. I don't think so. No, it just becomes a big rival that. No, it does. Well, it does in the way that beating him was better than beating anybody else out there because of the history we also had. Because we're so competitive, and we've been so competitive since we're 13 years old. Even in eating pizzas, how many pizzas can we eat? I mean, it was in every single thing, like ultimately competitive, both of us. And so of course with that background, it makes it even more intense because I hate coming second to him. Like it's really not good. So also because of the past we've had, and knowing each other for so long, and I have come second to him a lot in my life. So it's been a lot of difficulties there because he is just, I mean, incredibly fast driver.
Yeah.
As we now know, maybe the best the sport has ever seen. So unfortunately I had to come second quite a lot to him, starting from when I was 13 years old. So of course I have hugely fond memories also from the career, obviously, from all the, but mainly it's always linked to then the moments of success, really, also.
Right.
That's where the fond memories come back to. It's always back to those moments. Unfortunately, less the process of getting there.
Right.
Because that was always huge dedication, huge intensity, huge focus, sweat. I mean, really digging in every area. But just the moments where it all comes back in results, and I celebrate my first win in Monaco, which for me was an impossibility for me to ever achieve that. And then I do the whole weekend here, 2013. I'm first in every single session. Free practice 1, free practice 2, free practice 3, qualifying, race, every single lap, everything, like the whole weekend first, with Lewis as my teammate. And it's my home, and it's the greatest legends who've won this race, only the greatest legends, because it's the most difficult race in the world. And then those moments, I mean, wow. Then I would take the boat out, and we would join the beach party and arrive with the boat and the trophy at the beach party around the corner here in Monaco, where then 1,000 people were like, and I was like flying through the air at the beach party and with all my best friends. And so those are then some of course the most powerful and fondest memories and intensity in a positive way, which now I'll seldom experience again, unfortunately, but I had the blessing of having had it then. I mean, it's incredible, those sports moments, how intense they are, the joy, the celebration. It's really second to none, except maybe, okay, in personal life, I mean, when your baby is born, that's a little bit comparable, can be, in terms of intensity and emotions, or when you get married or something like that. But it's really amazing.
So reverting back to that personal growth, which actually is also what you're talking about now, how you change the way you interact with highs and lows and the intensities of life. Personal growth can't happen without failure. Like, it's our mistakes that allow us to grow and to learn. But looking at that as a neuroscientist, I know that our brain hates failure. Like, it wants to avoid mistakes at all costs, because mistakes and failure means danger. Your amygdala, again, tells you could die right now because something is up. Could you reflect on how you've dealt with failure throughout your career?
Yeah, so the biggest improvement there is understanding what you just said, that really failure is an opportunity. Failure is what helps us grow, what helps us get better. So if we work on understanding that, that helps a little bit. I'm still at the point where I hate failure massively, and I'm terrified of failing. Terrified? Yes. Also because of what other people, mainly because of other people's opinions then. A basic human need is significance, and with failure, you risk your significance in the short term or in the immediate instant. Because people will think, okay, you're rubbish, or you're a loser, or whatever. And so your significance takes a big short-term hit potentially there. And that's what I'm terrified about.
Okay.
I put a lot of value on what other people think of me. I probably beyond more than average, I think, a little bit more than the average person, how much I value what other people think of me. And so failure still terrifies me, but I really have worked a lot on understanding that it's an opportunity, and that helped me then towards the end of my career a lot. That in the moments of biggest failure, when it was most painful, I would just again sit down and realize and understand, hey, this is also an opportunity. Let's use this.
Yeah.
Let's use this. Let's come back stronger. Let's kill it now afterwards. And so my biggest failure, one of the biggest, was losing the World Championship to Lewis the second time in 2015. And even the way it happened was I made a little mistake. I was actually first, made a mistake. He got through, and that gave him the World Championship. So it was quite horrible. It was in Austin. And so second time again losing to him. And so I really, I kind of locked myself into my room and took a lot of time to think about it. And then I worked on this acceptance, which I had learned with my mental coach. And it really helped me. So from that moment, I won 7 races in a row.
Wow.
Which is one of the, I think the record was Sebastian Vettel with 9,
yeah.
but 7 races in a row against Lewis Hamilton from that very moment. And that led me to being world champion. Those 7 races in a row, and then I became world champion.
Yeah.
So I came back massively strong, like so dedicated, so focused, accepting that, hey, this is a chance to get stronger.
Yeah.
And so that helps. But I'm still terrified though.
Yeah, but that's a really interesting word to say, that you're terrified of failure, because I've heard many, like, this is the question that every Formula One driver gets, right? How you deal with mistakes and failure, and they always say, I hate it, but hate and being terrified, there's a slight difference there. So I'm just wondering, you just talked about what it was like in that final corner in 2016 when you became world champion. Was that in your mind, or were you able, because of everything that you had been through, to put that out of your mind and not be terrified of failure, but to focus on all the failures that I've had so far have brought me to this point?
Yeah, so unfortunately, with all the effort that I put in, nothing helped in that moment. But I say that I didn't make any mistakes, so I think a lot did help actually, because I managed to perform at my best in that moment. But mentally, my mental state was a mess. I mean, totally. So there was no meditation trick or something that I could apply in that moment to help me there. To the extent that I had never experienced it in my life, but I was battling with, so my engineer in that race tells me, you now need to pass Max Verstappen, otherwise you risk losing the championship. Because the strategy was turning out in a way that he was quite slow and he was making me drop back, and other people would have jumped me then. Yeah. So the engineer came onto the radio, Nico, you have to now pass Max Verstappen, otherwise you will risk losing the championship. And Max Verstappen is the most dangerous guy on track to try and pass, because you have a 50-50, he's going to take you out if you try and pass it. So one lap I look at it, and next lap I go for the lunge, and I'm like so far back, I'm 20 meters back, and I go for the lunge. Perfectly prepared, of course, doing special settings for that lunge, which again, very few drivers would do, to prepare a lunge with special settings just for that specific way that you know how you're going to do it, where you're going to do it. Maybe even no other driver would do it, I'm not sure, but very few. And so go for the lunge, then we go wheel to wheel through 2 corners, then on the exit he's trying to come back at me again, I'm locking the door, whatever. And then after that, as soon as when it was clear and I was good, my foot was jumping on the throttle pedal.
Wow. From
fear and adrenaline, but not like little vibrations, yeah? It was like going off and on. Like proper jumps.
Yeah.
And so then my next, what is my instinctive brain called?
Your amygdala again?
My amygdala is telling me, Nico, you're not going to be able to drive anymore because your foot is jumping off it, and you need to be very precise on the throttle pedal. So that's the next negative spiral, which makes the foot jump even more, because I'm like, okay, this is it, I can't drive anymore. My foot is out of control. And then, by good fortune, of course, you can just force the pedal down once you get past the corner, and then you go full throttle. Yeah. So I had one straight of just forcing it down, and then afterwards somehow, more or less, it came back. And so that's
my adrenaline is pumping just hearing you talk about it.
So that's an example of, unfortunately, in the heat of the moment, I didn't manage to keep my brain fully under control or fully accepting of all these things. But I didn't make any mistakes, so the build-up must have been very powerful, the preparation. Yeah.
Well, something must have happened, because you went full throttle, and then did the jumpiness come back, or?
Well, it kind of slowly faded away again.
Exactly. Yeah. So you managed. Well-being, for a large part, is about being able to regulate your stress response, right?
Yeah, but I wasn't able to regulate anything.
Well, but
I don't know. The foot just naturally kind of came back.
naturally, but it was your foot. Like, it's
Yeah.
not like your foot has a brain
Yeah,
of its
but
own,
it was
right?
my foot in the most extreme situation he's ever been in.
Exactly.
My foot has never jumped around like that.
Well, let's
I
give a
never
little-
will again in my life.
Let's give a little bit of credit to both your foot and your brain.
Yeah.
I think maybe subconsciously, like after that moment, after the
Yeah,
adrenaline of the moment
Yeah.
was gone, you maybe...
It wasn't gone, it stayed.
Yeah, but you had the
Okay.
tools to sort
I
of
don't
channel
think so.
it in
No,
a way.
there was no tools.
Man, you became world champion. There must have been
Yeah.
something there.
Yeah. Well, it's the preparation. I arrived fully balanced.
Exactly.
I switched off for the last 5 months. I had switched off social media, news, emails.
Smart.
My assistant was doing my emails. I never looked at anything. It was just family, racing, hobbies.
We are the Contentment Foundation, a globally operating nonprofit whose mission it is to bring indestructible well-being to 1 billion people within 1 generation. We do that firstly by going to schools with our 4 pillars of well-being curriculum, and secondly by working with large organizations worldwide to help them solve the biggest culture challenges at every level of the organization. One factor that we haven't mentioned yet is the impact of social media on mental health, which is massive, of course, and you have a really big platform on social media and you're doing amazing things, but that comes with, I often call social media the internet's toilet, because it's like there's so much trash out there being thrown at you all the time. And when you say that you're someone who wants validation and who finds that important, how do you deal with that now?
Yeah, I understand it. That helps a lot, and I'm aware of my addictions because I am a very quite addictive person.
All right.
And so I'll go through these phases of being addicted also to social media. But I'm very good at then. I'm very black or white. I'll then chop it off completely.
Okay.
And so I even did just 2 years ago. I think I did 6 months of Nokia phone. I went back to an old Nokia. so I did 6 months of a Nokia phone.
That's great.
The problem is it doesn't work. When there's some work projects that become intense, you have no chance with a Nokia phone. You need to have that smartphone to be able to respond. Otherwise, you just slow down so much.
Yeah.
So that's kind of taking me back to a smartphone now. But as soon as I can, I would like to go back to having a Nokia phone. I think that's awesome. Because by now you have WhatsApp also on your desktop.
Yeah.
So that can be your barrier a little bit, that you just have your desktop and it's not as easy to access your desktop and you can't do it at all times anyways.
Yeah.
So that's so I've developed a lot of understanding. So now we have a rule with my wife that we've just implemented that after 8 o'clock at night there's no more phones, and because I know how bad it makes me sleep. If after 8 I'm on my phone, I think my eyes are very sensitive to the blue light. Must be that, or
your brain
my brain,
switches
whatever.
on, yeah.
So I'm terrible sleep. But if I really stop at 8. Even TV works. It's not like phone for some reason. It's different. So if we then just watch some Netflix or something, my sleep is totally different, and it's just going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And yet, very often, then I would catch myself until 11 o'clock, even though I know it's bad for my sleep.
Yeah.
But there we go. I'm just very addictive as well.
But not just the social media in general, but also like the comments. Like the comments that people will throw at you. You're a big personality.
That's tough. Yeah.
I can imagine with everything that you've shared now. Like, is there a way for you to deal with that, or do you try to just block it out?
Yeah. The thing is, you cannot block it out as a race driver, because even I was doing it, blocking out, but then I would get to the racetrack and I have to go into a question and answer session with 100 journalists. Yeah. And I'm there alone and there's 100 journalists. My team has to prepare me for this question and answer session. So they will say to me in the build-up, so Lewis just recently said in the media that he thinks you're very weak under pressure. And he thinks he starts to see some stress fractures within your appearance. And so my team has to prepare me for this because, so Nico, they're probably going to ask you about this. We think the best way to navigate that is by saying this and this. What do you think? And then I get into the 100 people press conference, and the first guy will be saying, Lewis thinks you're weak under pressure. Why is that? And I'm like, and then the next guy, but we saw that you made a mistake last race. So they really like penetrate you with the all that rubbish that you don't want to be thinking about. And so you cannot avoid it, because you are not allowed to say no comment. No. Because no comment will also be a confirmation for them that yes, it is a weak point or whatever. Yeah. You have to engage and you have to find ways of answering them, and so And you have that every single day. It's not so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every time 100, maybe not 100, but a group of very hungry journalists who each want their headline, and they're asking you these questions.
Yeah.
So you can't escape. You need to confront.
And how does that work?
The difficulty.
How does that work when you're like you? Yeah.
It's very difficult, yeah. And then you come home and your family continues that process.
Yeah.
My family member will tell me, Nico, you should take up boxing to build up some more, fight in you, you know? Yeah. When on the day before or during that day, Lewis probably pushed me off track. And I yielded or whatever. I come home and this family member tells me, I really think you should go and do boxing and take up that as a sport, because maybe it will help you build up more fierceness. Shit. Shit. Because in other words, it's saying, Nico, you're too weak.
Yeah.
You need to build up some more. Shit.
Yeah. But now that you do have a choice, though, like you're not in the media pen anymore, you can choose to read or not read comments on social media when you post a video or...
About myself? I don't read.
You don't read it? Okay,
no.
that's
the team will then share
they will.
the nice comments or things like that.
Yeah.
But whenever I know that there can be some difficulties in the comments, I don't read.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I understand and I'm disciplined, I know what to do, and I don't read because I know it's not good for me and not helpful. So I avoid.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you for your time today and your openness. I mean, it's been absolutely extraordinary to hear, what you've learned and your journey. So I just want to say thank you for that. At the Contentment Foundation, we actually started working 6 years ago to build a definitive curriculum for children. We spent, 6 years looking through 100 years of psychology research and 1,000 years of ancient wisdom, looking for all the little ingredients that would go into a curriculum that would teach children how to be sustainably mentally well. So I'm curious, now that you really have a good understanding of all this work and you think about young children, you think about your children and other, kids that are being born into this digital world, as you think about the young generation, how would you like them to adopt these principles?
I can just say what I do with my kids, for example. We had a discussion yesterday in the car where the taxi driver said, I was with my daughter, just me, my daughter and the taxi driver, and the taxi driver said, oh yeah, your daddy used to be the best car driver in the world. and then my daughter says, no, that was Lewis Hamilton. Well, because she knows that he's more successful than I was and the greatest of all time. And then I'm like, yes, you're right. He's the best of all time, but daddy was also very good. But daddy is the one who put more effort into it and who was more dedicated and who practiced more, and that's just as important as actually winning. It's the effort you put into and the focus, the attention, the concentration you bring, and how much you practice. And because I'm trying to find that balance, because in society it's all about the winning, the money we have, the success we have in business, and it's not at all about the actual effort you put. And of course, not everybody can be Formula 1 world champion, because it comes down to the talent that you got given by your mom and dad, which we can influence very much as well. I want them to understand that it's not only about that actual result. It's also about the things that you can influence, which the result very often you can't influence, but what you can influence is the effort you put into it. So when you are in your piano lesson, even if at some point you seem to be struggling and you're not playing it as well as you want, as long as you've put that effort, that's what matters, and that's what I want you to be proud of. Be proud of yourself when you know that you've given everything you can possibly give in that moment and are concentrated and everything. So to find that balance, because society always is gonna dominate on that side of it's the result. It's only winning that matters, and who cares if you put any effort or not, and so I'm trying to find that balance a little bit.
I'm curious what also you see them wrestling with at this age. In our curriculum, there are 4 fundamental components. There's mindfulness, which is obviously about clearing the mind. There's community, which is about learning how to collaborate in sort of an abundant mindset. There's self-curiosity, which is about learning about yourself. There's contentment, which is learning how to deal with your emotions in a different way. What do you see them struggling with at this age? And if you were going to sort of get them working on certain parts of this curriculum?
Yeah.
Where do you think they would?
So one more thing that I'm really trying to teach my kids is contribution, because I grew up in Monaco here, and I never saw contribution somehow. I don't know. It was not something that I got exposed to, and contribution, helping others, essentially. Yeah? Somehow it completely missed me in the beginning of my life, and I'm catching up now, and it's so important for well-being, because it's a basic human need. And so that's also something I'm hoping to take my kids on a journey very early on, to try and get them to understand the value of contributing to others and saying thank you, and those small moments of making others happy and things like that. I'm putting a lot of effort in that. And then finally, I'm noticing more and more how bad young kids are at, what did you call it, understanding or expressing what the issue is.
Yes.
Yeah, so yesterday I had a big breakfast with my daughter. We had 2 croissants, exceptionally, because mom was not here. So 2 massive croissants for breakfast. Then we get to our usual lunchtime, which is 12 o'clock. The person helping us at home had cooked a nice lunch and has told my daughter that lunch is ready, and she was behaving so badly. I mean, completely ignoring. Then on the way to lunch, stopping at the piano and starting to mess about. And I'm telling her nicely, it's disrespectful, come to lunch now. And it ended up with me shouting at her in a big way, which led to nothing as well. And then 2 hours later, she says, "But Daddy, it's because I just wasn't hungry." Jesus, if you could have told me that you're not hungry, you know, it could have saved us such a mess.
Yeah.
Just say, "I'm sorry, Daddy, can I eat a little bit later? I'm just not hungry because I had 2 croissants."
Yeah.
But she's not able to tell me that in that moment.
That's great.
They struggle so much with this understanding of self and expressing, and it's quite surprising to me that they're so bad at that. I don't somehow I expected them to be able to be better at expressing their issues and needs. And
so do you feel like it's emotions and learning how to deal with emotions is the first big thing that they could learn about, or do you think it's a mixture of different elements?
Well, learning to deal with emotions. Well, here it's more about just expressing what you're. It's not even an emotion. It's just she's not hungry. I mean, expressing what the issue is. What she's, I guess, feeling in that moment, or what's the issue. Expressing that.
Yeah.
When I'm also asking her, like, was I asking her? Maybe I could do a better job with that. But she still wouldn't have answered. But then, yeah, I mean, having emotions under control, that's like impossible, isn't it, for them? I don't know how on earth are they going? Meltdowns are just meltdowns. I mean, there's no way out of meltdowns. You just need to. Yesterday, I just grabbed her and I ran up the building stairs. So we just did a change of scenery. She'd never been there before. And then she calmed down.
That's so funny.
Yeah, just taking them out of the situation will help. I mean, their emotion regulation, that's frontal lobe. Like your frontal lobe is involved in emotion regulation, and it's not done yet. Like especially at that age, 5 and 7, you said?
5 and 7.
Yeah. That part of the brain is just not switched on yet. So.
I have noticed. You have noticed as well, I suppose, no?
Yes, I have 2 boys who will do similar things. And I would just do, like when my youngest, who is now 3, would be like having a hissy fit about God knows what, I would just, hey, look over there, and just be like, what's going on? And then he forgets that he's
that works.
out.
I do that as well.
Yeah.
I start running around the house and doing, hey, look at the birdie out there, and oh my good, there's a rainbow whale swimming by. Do you see it?
I have one other question. My life, in some ways, is similar to yours. I've, from a very young age, been pursuing big goals in business, big goals in motorsports, and I've been going through a process of finding my new purpose, my new passion, my new big aspirations. I call it a moonshot, my new moonshot. And I'm really interested in impact-related moonshots. That's how I ended up with the Contentment Foundation. Is I realized at some point in my career that I had a superpower, and that I had such an extraordinary network that if I could bring that network on an impact topic, I could have a massive impact on that organization. Mm-hmm. That's how I ended up at the Contentment Foundation. And one of the things I'm working on is trying to inspire other powerful executives, other entrepreneurs, other athletes, musicians, what have you, people that have big sort of influence networks to pick something and really kind of lean into it. Have you thought about that? And what do you feel like the journey is going to be to find that? And then once you do find it, how do you see yourself leaning into that?
Yeah. So we're just kicking off the Rosberg Foundation now. And it's there's two aspects. One is kids, and then also environmental. But I'm still searching for that proper, the one you said.
The moonshot.
Yeah, I haven't found it, and I'm not close to finding it, unfortunately. Very often it's related to things you've experienced in your own life, which you want to help other people avoid.
Yes.
But yeah, not there yet. But I'm searching. But I'm convinced that my moonshot is in contributing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'm not there yet.
That's
unfortunately,
That's
which
great.
sucks. I would love to be there already.
Well, the fact that you're searching is the first big step.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's great.
You're
37.
37, and you basically just started looking, right? Because up to
true, yeah.
2016,
Yeah,
all you did was
5 years of looking now. Yes.
Yeah, you're only 5 years old, man.
Yes, it's
Give
true.
yourself some time.
No,
yeah.
it's true. I'm only 5 years old. Well, I definitely wasn't looking before, so.
Exactly, because your focus was on
Yeah.
one thing,
Yeah.
which is why you achieved it probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
So we've been, with our 4 pillars of well-being curriculum, we've been going to schools for many years already, but we've started a new chapter at the foundation, and we now have Contentment for Business, and that's a program that we bring to organizations, and it's basically bringing our expertise to them to help them with all sorts of challenges. And we can see the impact that it has on well-being, but also on topics like diversity and inclusion, engagement, retention, and performance in general. I could imagine that in this new career that you have, you also have to deal with setbacks, and you have to deal with competition, and you now have to deal with corporate politics, and all the things that you also dealt with in the context of F1 for many years. And you've used the tools that you gained in this whole mental wellness journey to deal with them effectively.
Yep.
Do you still use those tools now? Do you see parallels between those two things?
Well, it's understanding the importance of teamwork. I mean, I learned that in F1, that alone you can't achieve anything. So that's something that, of course, I've taken on board and taken on this journey. Then speed of decision making, surely. In the business world, you find so often, there's so much blah 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 blah, and then no one actually creates any action points, and then no one implements them. So that's something I quite like doing, and I'm quite pushy on that. So that would be another one. Then
what about setbacks? Have you maybe you haven't had any setbacks? That's also
no,
possible.
of course we have setbacks. Yeah. I mean, there it's just really my own experience still now that setbacks are an opportunity, but I still hate them. I still hate them so much.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's the acceptance that you're looking for, right?
I mean, last race with our electric racing team, we were fighting for the world championship against, surprise, surprise, Lewis Hamilton's team, who is second, and it's always the two of us fighting for these electric racing championships.
Yeah.
And last race, we had the chance to seal the championship, and I switched on the TV because it was in Chile, far away, I wasn't able to go. And my car is not at the start. Oh my goodness. The start is happening, and my grid is empty. The grid is empty. The car didn't start. Unbelievable. So that was a big setback, and it's just as horrible as always. So.
Just to maybe ask a slightly different question. As you look at corporations, I know you're exposed to big, global companies, you're exposed to young startups. Do you see a growing awareness that well-being matters? I mean, I know there's been a lot of topics around employee well-being. I mean, what do you see there, and do you see companies beginning to do work to address well-being?
Yeah, so that's a big one. Care. I think it's very important for companies to care. That's super important. Yeah. So for example, here actually we also encourage everybody to take 1 or 2 days of their work and actually pursue a charitable thing, and then we then share it in a team. That's nice, and of course we try and ask that it's in line with our own charity direction, so sustainability, environmental, or something like that, and that's something that we push, or also we help team members finance their personal development with courses and things like that. We pay for some of that, so it's all these kind of things, and just trying to care, and but also you can always do better also.
Of course, you can always.
But that's I think an important thing.
Yeah.
That companies really care.
Yeah. Actually, there's one thing that people don't always realize, which is amazing that you're doing this, getting your own people to do things for others. Because especially when we're in a crisis and we're feeling really bad about ourselves, what we know from neuroscience is that actually altruism, which is what you're talking about, contributing, doing something for someone else, activates a brain network called the mu-opioid system, and that actually enhances your well-being. It actually creates balance.
There you go. That's why it's a basic human need.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So closing question is a bit of a philosophical one, so there isn't an answer, but I'd be curious your opinion. I've learned, I'd say if you ask me the question, what's the single biggest thing you've learned in your career? I think for me, it's the importance of timing. That's what I've really learned. When I was a young entrepreneur, I was focused on finding a problem that I wanted to solve. I was focused on finding a solution for it, but I never really asked a lot of questions around the timing. When is the right time to solve this problem? And as I've moved into the investment world, I've really kind of gotten in the center of what does the right timing look like. And I'm just wondering, with this whole topic of mental well-being, I don't think the timing has arrived yet. You know, schools are not really truly serious about helping children from age 3 learn how to be truly sustainably well. I mean, they're making videos available to the kids, they're doing a few things, but it's actually like a full transformation that they have to embark upon. And even large corporations, they're giving employees Calm licenses and Headspace, and there's websites and hotlines, and they're ticking a box and saying we have employee well-being, but they're not actually committed to doing it. And I'm just wondering, from your point of view, how far away do you think we are from that inflection point where schools, you know, school districts say, okay, we're doing this full stop, right? Corporation says we're doing it. Yeah. Are we 2 years, 3 years, 5, 7, 10, like how?
15.
15.
Yeah, I would say. But it's not a fast-moving process, huh? But in my kids' school here in the international school, they now have every week a half-hour or 1 hour course, part of it, which is, if I'm not mistaken, the well-being hour even, and they will cover healthy eating. They will cover all these kind of things, which was also nice to see how it is coming. It is coming, and they're starting to integrate that, which is really good. The school also, up to last year, was in their, you know, they have the values, and one of the top most important one was excellence, which is winning and getting A+. But in that you forget that some of us do not have the ability to get A+ in mathematics because we're not mathematically wired. And so this year they have changed that, and I don't remember what the new word is, but it's gone away from excellence to effort and dedication. So now it's more about every child in mathematics doing their best, and not about trying to get that A+.
That's fantastic.
And so you can see these shifts coming now, which I think is really great and is so right.
It's literally from fix the growth mindset.
Which is what I was saying, that I was trying to encourage my kids, or I'm always trying to emphasize that side of things. And so the changes are coming now. It's really nice to see, but it takes time. And I know better than anybody because I was in the A+ world my whole life, where the 100 million people just judge you on if you finish first or second. And no one questions how much effort or values how much effort you've put in. And so the change is coming, but slowly.
Just a follow-on question. I mean, I was hoping we were 5 years away. So it's fascinating to hear that we might be 15. I mean, what do you think stops the world? I mean, I think we now know there's a problem. I mean, with the pandemic, it really accelerated the awareness of the problem. Why is it going to take us 15 years to get there? Like, what stops us from aggressively solving this problem?
Understanding. As I told you, I mean, most moms here or even dads are still focused on excellence entirely, and because there's still a lack of understanding, and it's a process, and it takes a lot of time for that to really develop, and more people understand, and it takes time.
Well, on behalf of the Contentment Foundation and everyone that's working within our organization, I just want to say thank you so much. I think this is going to help drive the awareness of our work. I always say this is the Contentment Foundation is the best kept secret. You know, the definitive curriculum does exist, but nobody in the world knows. A few people know, but with your help, many more people are going to become aware. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone at the foundation.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be part of it.
If you are a business leader looking to implement a program around well-being, high-performance culture, or DE&I within your organization, go to contentment.org/business.